You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 117, Tengo Project. Today we are talking all about a project that is kind of a successor to our three-part Natsume thing that we did last year. The Tengo Project was part of Natsume, came out of Natsume. We'll talk more about it in a little bit and get into details, but we are focusing on 5 games that were produced by this group, and it's gonna be a good time. We got some really good tunes lined up.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for this. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's kind of like an epilogue.
Yeah, epilogue, that's a good word.
Yeah. For our Natsume episodes that we did, and we talked about returning to the Tengo project if you will. We did. We kind of mentioned it towards the end, if I recall.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Of the final episode, and we were like, hey, stay tuned, we'll eventually do this. I remember we were talking about doing a Pocky and Rocky episode because...
Yeah, I think that's what started
That's what started this, because Pocky and Rocky Reshrined was coming out last year, or a year or two ago, or whatever, and we were like, oh, let's do an episode on that. And we were going to do it during the fall time. It would have been perfect. It was going to be right after Halloween, and then something happened, or maybe this game got announced, I think, the game that we're about to talk about, and I was like, we got to put the brakes on this. We got to hold off until this comes out, because we should really do this after this game comes out. So the intro track that we just played was from Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, which is the remade version of the original NES classic Shadow of the Ninja. And this came out on the Switch, PlayStation 5, and PC. This came out in 2024. And this was Stage 1 by Iku Mizutani.
Nice. Yeah, this was a lot of fun, too. I really enjoyed that bass line. That slap bass is always a positive in my book. It was very synthy. The rest of it, I mean, the only things that sounded non-synthetic to me were the bass and the drums, but I mean, that's not a knock on anything. I love synth. It was just interesting to hear all these different synths that they were using. And then there was even a little bit in there that I was like, oh, this little section here feels kind of like Castlevania-ish.
Yeah. I mean, that's natural just because Iku Mizutani worked for Konami before he came over to Natsume. So a lot of those sounds. And he also did, I believe, the drivers or something programming-wise for the first Castlevania. So, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Real quick, just a quick note. This game also did come out on the Series X for Xbox.
Oh, okay.
So just as a heads up about that. I don't want to call this bad. It's not bad. I want to say I'm a little... I don't even want to say disappointed, because this is a great track.
It's what a strong lead off to this episode, Mike.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I don't know. I guess I was expecting something different, seeing Iku Mizutani return to the soundtrack. I'm so used to the 8-bit version that I think that's kind of colorizing a lot of my feelings on this. Those synths are really bright and cheery, and I didn't really get that from the original Shadow of the Ninja. It felt like a metal track. You've got those chuggy kind of guitar sounding lead wavetable music, so
yeah. Now that you mention it, there was something in there that I couldn't quite place, and it's almost exactly what you're singing.
Yeah.
You're right. It sounds like something that I would hear in a metal track.
Right.
Okay. Not that it didn't make sense, but
Yeah.
like I heard it and I was just like, something about this feels weird.
Yeah.
But then I think that's what it is, because I recognize that as a metal progression.
Right. And so hearing this track, it's got more of a jazz funk kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
It's got that funky bass, a slap bass kind of in there. And it's also got some interesting parts where they're doing like he's doing like a start stop kind of thing where it's like da 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 da, kind of like a repetition. And then it goes into the main riff that everyone's used to. But
is it a start stop or is it a call and response?
No, I'd say it's more of a start stop, because it's like it's not doing da 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 like in the original. If you heard it in the beginning, it's just like da 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 da. I didn't hear any any kind of call and response sort of thing. That would make sense if he was to do that. But
yeah.
I haven't played much of this. I only have the demo for this game, which is a shame because I really do want to play more of it. But I did mostly enjoy the demo. I'd say, I'll be honest with you, I think this is the weakest of all the games that we're going to be talking about from playing the demo. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that. I've heard the game is great, so I can't really color my opinion fully without playing the full game.
Right.
But based on the demo, I played Stage 1, which is what this track is from. It's pretty much in line with, it's more of an expanded version of the original game for Shadow of the Ninja. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in terms of like the story and the characters and all that. But I just wanted to play this track because it's just such an iconic track, at least the original is, that when you think of Natsume NES games, you immediately think of stuff like Shatterhand and Shadow of the Ninja. I gotta wonder, based on the fact that Tengo Project has been kind of remaking all these old games that they worked on, I gotta wonder if Shatterhand's next.
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Iku Mizutani needs no introduction to this podcast. We talked pretty much all about him for 3 episodes straight. Go back and listen to our Natsume episodes, which...
Well, not 3 episodes straight. There was 2 episodes in between each of those episodes.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, like...
99, 102, and 105.
You got it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So if you want to check this out, so you can kind of, if you're jumping into this now and you're like, wait, what? What are they talking about? Go back and listen to some of those episodes, because there's 1, really fantastic music.
Yeah.
And 2, we talk a bunch about the Natsume composers that we're going to be talking about today. We'll probably touch a little bit on Hiroyuki Iwatsuki a little bit later, because he is doing the lion's share of the work.
I was just going to say it's Hiroyuki Iwatsuki almost all the way down.
Yep.
Save for this.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So the Tengo Project, just real quick, is a very tiny development team. It's built within Natsume Atari. So Natsume Atari, the Japanese company that we talked about, basically Natsume Inc. Mm-hmm. And so there's 3 members: Shunichi Taniguchi, who does graphic and gameplay design. There's Toshiyasu Miyabe, who does programming, and then Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, who does programming and composing. So every game that they've worked on, he's been the composer on. So we'll touch a little bit more on him in just a bit. But I figure we'll get into the first pick, which is your first pick, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to lead us off here with... I guess we should also mention, we're going to do these games kind of in release order. So I'm going to do Omega 5.
Except for Shadow of the Ninja. Except for
Well,
intro.
that was the intro. Intro doesn't count.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're going to talk about Omega 5
Right.
twice, Wild Guns Reloaded, et cetera, et cetera. So... from Omega 5, which came out on the Xbox 360 back in 2008, this is going to be Staff Roll Road to the Future by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. Welcome back. That was Staff Roll Road to the Future by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. That came off of the Xbox Live Arcade game Omega 5 back in 2008.
Yes.
This is a scrolling shooter, right?
Yes. I got an Xbox in maybe mid-2008, I think. Or maybe around May or so. I can't remember when I got it. But... might have been 2009, but I remember this is one of the games that was like on my list where I was like, I gotta get this game, because I knew that I had heard that Hiroyuki Iwatsuki did the soundtrack, so I was like, and I didn't know what Tengo Project was. They were very unknown, but this is essentially a side-scrolling shooter where you can pick up to 4 different characters, which is Ruby, who's like a sexy kind of blonde character. There's Tempest, who's the like big stacked alien dude, who's like a heavy weapons dude. And then there's Rad, who...
it says Rad becomes selectable by beating a game with Ruby.
Sorry, yeah. She's basically like a faster version of Ruby. She looks a little different, though, more like an alien. Like she's got like her whole face covered by a mask. And then Sensei is like an old dude that you can unlock if you beat it with Tempest. So really the only 2 characters right off the bat are Ruby and Tempest. Right. So, and Sensei has this dog. He rides on a sled that like flies in the air. And he's got a dog whose name is Ricky Maru. And Ricky Maru can like grab enemies. He's kind of like, that's the whole point of the game is you use this like whip thing to attach to enemies. And then you can use that to destroy them, I think you can pull them in closer. There's 3 different types of attack styles. There's like A, B, or C. You could upgrade your weapon. There's like a laser, there's a lightning gun, and there's like a Vulcan cannon that has like spread shot via the upgrades.
Okay.
So it's a really fun shooter. It's also really difficult, but it's one of those games that you have to play religiously over and over and over. I did beat it with both characters and unlocked both unlockable characters. I believe that if you beat the game with all the characters, that you can unlock a 16-bit version of the soundtrack. I'm gonna be honest, it's not good. It's not good. No. Yeah, they tried to like emulate like the Genesis style, if I recall.
Oh, so FM synth.
Yeah, but it's not FM synth. It's like, I don't know what they did, but like the sound is really distorted and weird. It's like they put it through. I think what they did is they didn't go back and like re-record the music naturally. I think what they did was, and don't quote me on this, I don't know, I'm not Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, but I think what they did was they ran the existing music through a filter of some sort and tried to make it sound retro, and it just doesn't sound good. It sounds very muffled if you listen to the songs. I didn't want to pick anything from that because I was like, I'm not going to showcase this. But there are some arranged versions of the songs on the soundtrack itself, and those are excellent. Those are really, really good. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the soundtrack's available on like, most services, free sites and whatnot. So go check it out.
Nice. Speaking of the soundtrack,
yes,
this song.
Didn't you want to just talk about the game the whole time and not the soundtrack itself?
Well, that's right. We're not a video game music podcast.
No,
we're a video game restoration podcast.
Yes, we're a video game restaurant podcast. Delicious podcast.
From here on out, it's just Panic Restaurant and Pizza Tower.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Food game music. That'd be a good episode.
I mean, I isn't that in the list?
I think it is on the list. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so this track was a lot of fun. I mean, obviously the reason I picked it just kind of the high energy, all that techno goodness, like right off the bat, it reminds me of a lot of the techno stuff that I was into in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
So much so that as I was listening to it, I could almost see this being a track in DDR.
Okay, I could see that. Yeah. It's very bouncy. It's not bouncy like happy bouncy. It's more just like a rock and techno track.
It's high energy.
Yeah. High energy, exactly. Yeah. I like this track. I didn't dislike it. I don't really remember it in the game itself because it's the staff roll, and I mean, it's been like 10 years since I beat the game, so if not longer. So, but yeah, it's a good track. I think I have more of a appreciation and nostalgia for the first 2 tracks of the soundtrack and the opening, because I heard those so much, replaying that over and over and over again. So the later tracks aren't as familiar to me. But we actually played the first level track on episode 105 on the third Natsume episode. So if you're wondering, if you're like, wait, didn't they talk about this in the Natsume episode? We did. I think it was one of the final tracks we played on that episode. And that was really more of a precursor to try to let people know that, hey, we're not really 100% diving into Tengo Project on this episode, but, we'll touch on it because it is part of the Natsume Inc.'s legacy. So
nice.
I guess we'll play Mine Track, which is coming up next. So again, from the same game, Omega 5, the Xbox Live Arcade game. We're going to play Stage 2, which is the Escalated Invasion. And this is, again, by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. Hey, welcome back. That was the level 2 track called Stage 2, The Escalated Invasion, off of Omega 5, the 2008 Xbox Live Arcade exclusive, and that was by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
One would even say it was an invasion on the ears.
Possibly.
Stage 2.
Yes, factual. But the opening to that, I was really into. I mean, I was into the whole song, but the opening was kind of giving Crystal and Ice vibes.
Okay.
Just with those kind of twinkly notes that were in there. The rest of it was a great listen. It actually kind of brought me back to that era of games where there was kind of this almost like a resurgence of more classic type video games, and as video game composers were sort of stepping away from not real book audio per se, but like orchestration, and rather than going back to like the 8-bit or 16-bit sound, they were doing what I wouldn't call this chiptunes, but it's almost like, you know, if you didn't have chiptunes, what chiptunes would sound like in regular synth.
Okay.
Having trouble describing what I'm trying to, or like what I'm hearing in my head, but more or less, it's more of like a chiptune sound, but not done with chiptunes, just done with synthesizers and stuff like that.
I mean, there was a bigger focus back in the day in terms of video game music on melody and harmonies.
Yes.
And that got lost in the shuffle a little bit during, I guess what you would say, like the bro gamer era of Xbox Live, you know, stuff like Call of Duty, Guitar Hero, you know, like a lot of the focus went away from making music that was like very melodic and very kind of like taking inspiration from real music of all different kinds. And instead, most of the music that was coming out was more like influenced by movies.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
like
exactly.
movie soundtracks, that really epic kind of movie soundtracks that you would hear coming out from like Hollywood movies back in the day. You know, the bombastic kind of booming kind of sound.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. That's exactly what I was thinking too. Like they were trying to emulate the scores and soundtracks of movies rather than, you know, what was traditionally done in video games. Which again, like I understand why they went that way, because they were trying to make video games feel more epic and more grandiose.
Sure.
But at the same time, like I feel that with that movement, you lost a lot of what for me made video games fun was the music had a particular thing to it.
Yeah, video games got super serious, and every video game had to have like a licensed soundtrack back then. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where like during the Xbox and PS3 and Wii era, you know, less on the Wii side, I'd say there were still a lot of video games that were coming out from Nintendo, and just like the developers on that console, they were still kind of staying true to not chiptunes, but just like, hey, let's make games that have like
fun music,
fun video game music
concepts,
melody over, you know, bombastic, you know, kind of classical movie trope music. And any game that was coming out at that point in time on Xbox or PS3, it either had like this movie soundtrack that we were referring to, or it had licensed music from like heavy metal bands or stuff like that. So
or even like a mix between the two, where it was, you know, they brought a famous musical artist on to do the soundtrack.
Right.
So
yeah,
I remember a handful of games like that.
Yeah. So this was kind of the beginning of a return to soundtracks that were developed by composers from the old school industry. There was still some of that in the Japanese scene where they were doing it, but to see it in a North American released game was very rare back then.
Yeah.
You know, there really wasn't as much of that then during that time. So I remember I specifically bought this because it had a Hiroyuki Iwatsuki soundtrack. And then I saw the game and the previews for it and everything, and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. What's interesting, though, about this is a little bit about the history of Natsume Co. Limited. Tengo Project was considered an internal team.
Yes.
They were essentially like a very small group that Natsume Co. Limited were like, hey, we want you to make games, and we're going to put you on this project. And the publisher on this game was Hudson Soft, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't they didn't have a publisher for Natsume Co. Limited because you would think that, they'll just have Natsume do it. The North American
right
publishing Natsume, but they didn't. So this was during the time where Hudson was being bought out by Konami. So after its release, shortly after that, Konami bought out Hudson. And when they did that, apparently all the other games that Tengo Project had planned to release on 3DS, because this was going to get a 3DS port.
Oh.
And it got canceled, and all the other projects they were working on for the 3DS got canned.
Oof.
Yeah. So we have no idea what was supposed to be coming. I don't know. I've never heard of anything that was supposed to be coming out that they had planned or that they were working on at that time, because the 3DS was still in its infancy in terms of what they were working on for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of a shame. But yeah, it's a cool game. I don't know if you can still buy it. I have it on my Xbox One, I believe. I think it is. It did transfer over there.
Okay.
So I would imagine that it's still available, that you could purchase it, but it might be one of those games that got pulled recently.
Yeah, delisted.
Yeah, so if it did, unfortunately, there's no other way to play it because it's never had any other re-release, so...
Yeah, never had a physical release, so...
Never had a physical release, only digital, correct. Yeah, so wah-wah.
Damn.
Yeah, unfortunate, but at least, we've got these cool tunes, and we've got, the people who do have the game.
Yeah, all right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll move on to our next game.
Yeah, so like we said, we've got a lot of Hiroyuki Iwatsuki here, so we will cover some of their soundtracks,
yeah,
or rather, go through their credits a little bit, but since it's mostly Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, we'll do that closer to the middle. Speaking of Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, this next game was also composed by him. The game is called Wild Guns Reloaded. It originally came out on the Switch and the PS4 back in 2016, and I'm going to play the Armored Train track. Hey there, hi there, ho there. That was Wild Guns Reloaded. Armored Train was the name of the track by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki, and that came out on the PS4 in 2016, as well as the Switch.
Yeah. This track seemed much faster than the original game. The original game came out on the Super NES back in, what was it, like 94?
1994, I think?
Yeah, or 95 in North America. And just to note, the original soundtrack was also co-composed by Haru Ohashi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just FYI.
Good point to make.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love this one for just how fast it was. Like that super fast opening. Yeah, the whole track to me feels a bit sped up, which is likely just trying to amp up the feeling of anxiety on the Armored Train level. But this one just made me smile. Like it felt silly. Like there was enough there that like it felt serious, but because of the way that it was sped up, it almost reached Benny Hill levels of musical comedy for me. Yeah. And then, I mean, I like Westerns. I like Western type music. So the fact that the whole game is a Western. So obviously everything from this is going to sound kind of Western, but I really enjoy that, the whistle that they have in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Western, but it's also kind of steampunky.
Oh yeah, it's like a space steampunk Western.
Yeah, sci-fi, steampunk influence for sure on this. I mean, you're fighting like giant robots and killer robots and stuff like that. So, but yeah, there's 6 levels. Each level has 2 stages. There's mini bosses, and there's a third stage with the final boss.
Right.
You can play it single player or multiplayer, but I will say that the game is very un-user friendly in terms of the difficulty. The game's difficulty is off the charts hard.
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's a shooting gallery type game. So you're in the foreground, shooting into the background. If you hold the shoot button down, you can move the reticle around, but you cannot move and shoot at the same time.
Right. Yeah, you can move around, but as soon as you stop to shoot, like you can't move. You can do like a dash jump sort of thing to dodge out of the way. Yeah, which works pretty well. But yeah, it's a really, really difficult game. There's also a lasso you can use to like freeze enemies, which is cool. That will help with certain situations where like you have to freeze an enemy, then attack them. I found myself in this version of the game using the lasso accidentally a lot more. You know,
really in the update, the remake.
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe I'm flipping that and I used it more in the original. I really can't remember. It's been a while since I played this. It controls pretty well for the most part. All of the changes that they made, I think were for the better for the most part. I just wish that they did more with it and made it a little bit more user friendly, for the remake. But yeah, the remake Wild Guns Reloaded instead of just Wild Guns. But I mean, the game in and of itself, the Super NES game, was kind of a cult classic.
I was going to say, like, I know a number of people that were in love with this game.
It's great.
If I had played it when I was a kid, it would probably be up there with a lot of the SNES games, just for the sheer fact that it was, this anime-styled Western. Like, I mean, I loved Cowboy Bebop. I loved Trigun. I mean, those were after this game. But then you've also got Tin Star on the SNES.
Yes.
Very weird game, but I loved that as well.
Yeah.
Just for what it did. I did not encounter this game until later in life, like my 20s or 30s.
Interestingly enough, there's a screen shake feature and like kind of like mirage-like effects that occur during explosions. That was inspired by RoboCop 3, the movie RoboCop 3.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, isn't that weird? But there was a lot of influence from games like Dynamite Duke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and also, of course, it's, Blood
Brothers.
Yeah, Cabal is very similar to this. So if you played Cabal, it's pretty similar. You play as 2 different characters, Annie or Clint, in the original version. You can also play as, I think, Doris in the...
Oh, in the Reloaded?
In the Reloaded, and there's a dog named Bullet who's on like a drone.
Huh.
And I don't know what the deal is with Tengo Project and dogs as playable characters, but I'm kind of in love with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. Doris is like more like the heavy weapons kind of girl. I think she's like a explosions.
Oh, demolitions.
Expert. Yeah. So instead of having like guns like the other 2, Annie's got like a pistol. Clint has like a shotgun kind of style weapon, and you can upgrade weapons as you go on through the game to like get different, like you can shoot barrels and stuff to unlock different weapons, use those weapons until you run out of shots, and when you run out of shots you got to try to find more weapons scattered throughout. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I know that the Reloaded version also added some new enemies and some new stages, as well as modes. Like the 4-player local co-op was an interesting draw.
It was totally bananas when this game came out, because the idea of a developer going back and looking at their original game and being like, we can make this better. Like, we can make new stages for this, and doing it. Like, making new stages that felt like they were in the game the whole time was really incredible. So hats off to them for doing that, because they could have just remade the game entirely.
Yeah.
But no, they were like, let's just make like a better version of the original game. Of course, a lot of the effects were changed, like the explosions and stuff. All of that was updated to kind of look visually more impressive.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. All right. I also picked a track from Wild Guns Reloaded.
What? I never would have guessed.
I know. Yeah. This track is called Final Fight.
Sorry.
It has nothing to do with Capcom's Brawler.
Hagar's not in this?
Hagar is not on this. But yeah, it's another Hiroyuki Iwatsuki jam. So let's give it a listen.
You're listening to XVGM Radio.
All right. As you can hear, that's got nothing to do with Final Fight, the Capcom games. That was Final Fight from Wild Guns Reloaded, and that was by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki.
This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was mostly kind of focusing on those backing trumpets because they were just kind of, in my head, they were doing one of these going back and forth.
Okay.
But
wearing steampunk gear.
Yeah. But that lead guitar, it was really, really rocking. It at first, I felt like kind of what we were talking about earlier, where like this feels like it should have been a metal song type of thing. I felt like the solo or the riff that they were going with felt more metal, but the more it went on, the more it felt right.
Yeah.
And the more it just kind of blended in with the overall theme of the song.
Yeah, a lot of this music in this game kind of feels like metal mariachi music. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's an interesting combination.
You know,
okay.
it's an interesting sound that they created here, because it's got those horns, as you mentioned, and it's got the kind of speedy guitar, again, sounding very fast, like even faster than the original. But I never really picked up on the original having any kind of guitar sound to it. It always kind of sounded just like natural instruments, you know, like horns and stuff. I never really picked up on the idea that it could be guitar, so this was cool to listen to.
Yeah.
There's not really much else I can really say about the game itself. We actually talked quite a bit about it already. We talked a little bit about the characters. As far as the visuals for the characters, Annie is in like a big pink floofy dress. You can change the colors on the characters too, so you can change, if you could change them in their different presets so that you may change their dress and their hair color changes, you know, that sort of thing, kind of like in Street Fighter. Clint has like one of those like cape things that like you can toss away. I don't know what it's called, not like a poncho, but like it's like a cape poncho,
a cape
a concho,
cloak,
a pape.
I think it's considered a cloak.
A cloak, sure. We agree on that one. He's wearing like jeans or like what looks to be jeans.
Yeah, that's definitely denim.
Yeah, yeah.
And big old cowboy boots.
Yeah, and a big old cowboy hat. And then Doris has like a green kind of halter top thing and some green kind of combat pants with boots and kind of like cowboy boots. So she looks pretty cool. The dog is, I'm not sure what kind of, yeah, it's a dog. I'm not sure what kind of dog that is. I think it's almost like a wiener dog, but like with shaggier hair. Kind of looks like a wiener dog. A little bit. And his little robot buddy. So it's a cool game. It's a lot of fun. I think I've only beaten it in like the beginner's mode where you can like play through the game. Here's the problem. If I recall, there's no option to pick the stages you want to play. So it's basically like you just run through the whole game and, there's no do-over.
Yeah. Interesting. So they added levels. So they just made the game longer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The newer levels fit right in for the most part. They're pretty cool. It's a shame because I'd like to beat the game on like a harder difficulty, but like I just can't. It's just so difficult. It's true to the nature of the original. The original was difficult too.
Yeah.
There are some differences between the PS4 and the Switch version, if I recall. The Switch version came out later, like maybe 2 years later.
Yeah.
So it's worth noting that it's a different build of the game in the sense that some of the bugs were fixed and they were never fixed on the PS4, if I recall. I couldn't find anything saying that the bugs were fixed. I just know that there's like broken multiplayer and some other issues with it. So
I mean, a lot of these older games were ridiculously hard, and to know that they were brought forward without much change in that is a little disheartening. But at the same time, I mean, it sounds like on the Switch they kind of remedied that. So
yeah, a little bit. I will say the next game that we're going to be talking about is like far superior, probably the best game that they've done, in my opinion, so far.
All right, well then let's get to it.
Sure.
Next game in the list here is The Ninja Saviors: Return of the Warriors. This came out on Switch and PS4 in 2019. I'm going to play for you Stage 7 Boss, and this was another game composed by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. All right, you're back. That was Stage 7 Boss from The Ninja Saviors, Return of the Warriors. That was the Switch and PS4 game from 2019, composed by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki.
Oh, man.
Oh, man, indeed. What are your thoughts?
Man, I love this track. I love this soundtrack as well, but I really, really love what they did with the soundtrack on this. You know, the whole thing, so the original came out on the Super NES, and the whole thing was very funky.
Was it the Super NES?
Yeah.
I thought it was arcade first.
You're thinking of the original Ninja Warriors. So the story goes like this.
I always get it mixed up.
Taito were the creators of the original Ninja Warriors game. It was an arcade game. It had like 3 screens.
Yes.
And it was like kind of a landmark action game for Taito. Zentada provided the music and everything. So then, some years later, Natsume, they ended up working with Taito in some capacity. This is long before Taito got bought out by Square Enix. And they started working on a follow-up to the Ninja Warriors, simply called Ninja Warriors on Super NES. On the Super Famicom, it was called Ninja Warriors Again.
Oh.
Yeah. Also called Ninja Warriors The New Generation in Europe.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like a hack and slash action game, similar to, you know, various different, like, I don't want to call it a beat 'em up, because I think that it's got a little more nuance than a beat 'em up does. There's a lot more moves that you can do in this as opposed to like a beat 'em up. So I'd say it's more of an action hack and slash kind of style game.
Okay.
You play as 3 different characters. There's Kunoichi, who is the female ninja. Ninja, who is the beefy, you know, tank character. And then there's the 3rd character, which is Kamatachi. He is fast, really fast and agile. And he can move his arms like all the way around, so that like he uses like windmill attacks.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay,
where like his arms go around really, really fast. But he has these like really sharp curved blades on his arms, which are really cool. And to go back a little bit, the Kunoichi, she has like small kunai knives.
Oh, yeah.
And she's also got a katana blade on her back that she uses too.
Okay.
There's additional characters as well. We'll get into those after the break for our next track. But yeah, this track just really full of energy. And what I love about this soundtrack is they took the essence of what is a very funky, jazzy kind of soundtrack and really kind of amped up the level of intensity, but not sacrificing the melody and the power of the instruments. You know, they did a really good job with implementing new kind of sounds and styles for this music without losing what it sounded like originally. So I think they did a really good job with this.
Yeah, I enjoyed the track because I thought it had a really strong opening, and then you had those like stabs throughout, which a lot of times I can take them or leave them, but I thought they were really well implemented in the song, and I thought it brought a lot more to the song. The driving bass line was a lot of fun, and you can't always really hear the bass, but every so often the bass becomes a little bit more prominent, and you can kind of hear that it sounds like a slap bass, which, again, as I've already mentioned, is just something that I really enjoy. So when it kind of fades in and fades out, like it goes more to the background and it just has this driving bass line, but when it comes more to the foreground, it excites me a bit because it's just this really fun bass sound that I enjoy.
Yeah, the original had a slap bass as well.
Yeah.
So they continued doing that. And I love, as you mentioned, those synth hits. You know, the stabs, the dun 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 dun. That's like littered throughout the entire soundtrack. It's awesome. It's so good. Really love it. So,
All right.
Yeah, let's get into the next track. This one that I picked is Stage 1. It's a classic. Again, from Ninja Saviors, Return of the Warriors. It's by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. Hey, you're back. Oh my goodness, that was Ninja Savior's Return of the Warriors, the Ninja Warriors remake called Ninja Warriors Again. And that track was stage 1 off of the PS4 and Switch 2019 game, again by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. Oh man, I love this track.
I see why.
Between those synth hits, the punchy bass, and those awesome synths, it's so good.
Yeah, no, that's basically what I had as well. Once again, this is another track from this game that has a really strong opening. I like how they came into this one with just like those hits, that melody drop, and then kind of like diving into the song.
Yeah.
And like you said, the bass was a lot more prominent in this one than the one that I had picked, and I loved every second of it. It was just a lot of fun from start to finish.
This game completely erases the importance of the original in the sense that it is just so much better. Not only is it more accessible, you can actually beat it, but not only that, it offers additional characters, it offers a more robust combo move set that is very, like, when you're fighting, you can kind of roll with the punches, so to speak. It's not very stiff. There's so much that you can do with the combat that it feels like it's meant to just keep going. Whereas the original felt more like a beat 'em up in a lot of ways, where you're just going through, running, finding an enemy up, kill him, all right, he's dead, now move on to the other enemy, okay, kill him, he's dead, move on to the enemy. And, most enemies were very easy to defeat. This one, they kind of amped up the difficulty a little bit, but they made it so that individual enemies were harder to defeat, but you could do so much more that it really felt like you were super powerful. So,
Okay.
really excellent game. Like, cannot stress this enough. If you don't own Ninja Saviors, go get it. It's one of the best games in the past, 10 or so years. Really
Wow.
excellent. Yeah, from old school style games, it's one of the best remakes ever. So credit wise, again, I know we talked about him a lot on the Natsume episodes.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Shojin Sentai Jetman that came out on the Famicom. I'm gonna go Mitsumi ga Toru, which came out on the Famicom. That's one of my favorite soundtracks that he's done. So I'll do one more. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Sure. Yeah, I know he did Gundam Battle Assault 2 on the PlayStation 2.
Yes.
That's really cool. Also, Half Minute Hero on the PSP back in 2009. That was... And then we'll skip over some of the ones that we're going to talk about later. And I will go with Spanky's Quest on the Game Boy, 1991.
Sure,
Who doesn't
yeah.
love Spanky's Quest?
Did the Super NES version as well. Yeah, Spanky's Quest got a great soundtrack. I'll talk just briefly about the actual game's plot. This is, again, a remake of the original Ninja Warriors that came out in arcade and Sega CD or Mega CD, really. But it's about these robots that are built by this dude named Mulk. Essentially, there's this bad guy, dictator, tyrant dude named Bangalore who is trying to brainwash people. And Mulk, Daddy Mulk, creates these robots to try to stop Bangalore. All the sprites, by the way, were completely redone. So if you look, the sprites on the original Super Nintendo version were much smaller and less detailed. They really amped up everything. I mean, from the movement to the attacks. There's so many more frames of animation. I mean, hell, they even added a boob jiggle on Kunoichi. So, it's pretty wild. There's additional characters too that they included in the remake. There's, I think, 2 extra characters. One is named Yaksha, and she's kind of like a short stack, if I'm being honest, and she's really cool to play as. She's got these really long arms, like robot arms, that turn into these claw type, attack type things. Really cool attacking with her. Her playstyle is totally different than the other characters too, so she's bringing her own kind of vibe to the game. And the other guy is Raiden, and he's just another beef boss, like a giant mech, dude, super big, the size of some of the bosses. Way bigger than Ninja, towers over him. So yeah, he's really cool to play as well. I got to say, probably Kunoichi's my favorite. She's the fastest, I'd say, other than Kamitachi, who's also really fun to play as. Also, you can unlock the Super NES soundtrack if you don't like this remade soundtrack. And you can even unlock the original Ninja Warrior soundtrack with Daddy Molk and all
Japanese
those
Smile.
Yeah, all those like songs. So yeah, you can.
And those were Zuntata songs originally, right?
Yeah, they were, and it's just so weird to hear them. If I'm being honest, I did unlock those, and I've listened to them, and I'm just like, they just sound so out of place. Knowing that I know the whole soundtrack, I listen to the soundtrack all the time. Yeah, it's just interesting to hear.
All right, we're moving on to game number 4, and this one's going to be Pocky and Rocky Reshrined. This came out in 2022 on the Switch and PS4, and I'm going to start off with The Decisive Battle, Black Cloak, again by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. Hey folks, that was The Decisive Battle, Black Cloak from Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, composed by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki on the Switch and PS4 back in 2022, and I just thought this one was neat. Like Marge thinks potatoes are neat.
I was just going to say about Marge. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I just think they're neat.
Yeah. So this is a little less energetic than what I've been bringing so far tonight. It's kind of a palate cleanser, if you will.
Yeah.
But I really liked the understated intro there. Like, it didn't hit you over the head like the Ninja Warriors ones, but it just kind of like eases you in, which is interesting for a battle song. Again, this is called, The Decisive Battle, and that always makes me think of, I think, Final Fantasy IV. There's a song called The Decisive Battle.
Yeah.
Much more energetic, but...
I think 5 has that track, too.
Oh, no, I think it's from 5.
It is 5?
Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing that really kind of like elevates this track for me is that bass line. That's just like really cute and funky bass line.
I did agree that it's definitely a bit of a fresh air kind of track. Feels a little bit more wispy and relaxed.
We've been rocking out really hard tonight.
Yeah. We needed a break.
We're old.
Yeah, we are. So, we needed that break.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of fits with the Pocky and Rocky kind of.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say is like that game is kind of cute, right?
Yeah, it's a cutesy kind of shmup in a way. It's like you control the scrolling though, and you're just moving down to up or right to left or whatever. But yeah, it's a fun little game where you're playing as either Pocky or Rocky. Yes. Rocky is a tanuki, which is a Japanese raccoon dog. Pocky is a Shinto shrine maiden. And so they are working together to defeat a bunch of monsters that are very much referenced from like Japanese mythology and monsters.
Yeah.
All sorts of legendary creatures. demons and ghosts and spirits and whatnot. So the series was originally called Kiki Kai Kai, and again, a Taito game series through them. So the game was remade a number of times, and there were sequels that were created by Natsume for like Super Nintendo, which was Pocky and Rocky overseas, outside Japan. In Japan, it's called Kiki Kai Kai. But yeah, so, and then they made a sequel for Super Nintendo, Pocky and Rocky 2, which is pretty expensive nowadays. I remember I bought the original Pocky and Rocky for $20. Oh, wow. Probably around like 2009. So, and I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I've heard of this game and played it, and I thought it was fun. There's also a game that came out in the Game Boy Advance called Pocky and Rocky with Becky, who is just like another kind of shrine maiden, if I recall, maybe even a younger one. So I'm not sure on the girls' ages. I think they're younger girls. They're like maybe 11 or 12 or something like that. Like they're not babies or kids, little kids, but they're, I think, a little older. Okay. Yeah. They have like a chibi kind of look to them.
Yeah. Was her hair any good? Was it Becky with a good hair?
Becky with good. Wow. Wow, Justin, that reference.
I got a lot of them in there.
Yeah. Don't quit your day job.
Oh, I won't.
Altron developed that one, and then after that, the series kind of went underground a little bit. There was another game that was supposed to be a Kiki Kai Kai game called Heavenly Guardian. Basically, it was supposed to be a Kiki Kai Kai game, and they lost the license for it. So they basically just kept the game and just changed the name of the characters and the style and everything of the vibe of the characters, but it plays exactly like a Kiki Kai Kai game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like Pocky and Rocky. So, and that one's called Legend of Sayuki in Europe. But this is essentially I guess a full-on sequel from the original team for Pocky and Rocky Reshined.
Oh, see, that's interesting, because with Wild Guns Reloaded, like when you call something Reshrined, I assume that it's a remake. That's really interesting that it's an actual sequel.
Yeah, I believe it's a sequel because the premise is after Pocky and Rocky defeated him in previous entries, Black Mantle goes back in time to try to get revenge on them.
Huh.
So I don't know.
Interesting.
Maybe it's like a remake, but with the intention that what happened in that game happened.
Oh, yeah, because he's going back in time.
Yeah.
So maybe it's retreading old content, but in a new way.
Yeah, I think so.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
like that idea.
I really don't remember my time with the original Pocky and Rocky, so I just know that those games are notoriously difficult, and I've always sucked at them. Even though they're very accessible and fun, they're just really, really difficult. So I have not made it past the first level of this game.
Wow.
Yeah, of Reshrined. It's really hard.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's fun. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's hear what you have to play from this game.
Yeah, so I picked a track called World of Hades, and again by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. Hey, welcome back. That was Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, specifically the track World of Hades, and that was by Hiroyuki Iwatsuki. What did you think of this one?
Again, fairly cute. This one was a bit more funky. I like the inclusion of a theremin, the theremin instrumentation, or perhaps theremin instrumentation. It was a lot of fun. Again, that bass line was really cool, and I'm noticing now we're kind of moving away from the more energetic stuff. We're also moving away from that slap bass. This was more of a, dare I say it, buzzy bass. Yeah, I have more interest in this game hearing more of the music because it seems really cute.
It's fun, don't get me wrong. It's a really fun game. You can get all these different power-ups that you can unlock just by you throw like shrine cards, like the cards that the shrine maidens use, to ward off. Yeah, the seals to ward off evil spirits, whereas Rocky throws leaves. And it's just fun. You unlock new weapons, new abilities, and stuff like that. So it's cool. There's another, there's I think like a villain or something, like another female character that you could play as. If I recall, but I really can't remember her name off the top of my head. But yeah, you could play as another third character in the game that's unlockable. It's not Becky. Yeah. So.
No.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah.
We'll just have to deal with so hair.
There's 2 additional different playable characters outside of Pocky and Rocky. One is a goddess known as Ame no Uzumi, and she's a demon warrior. And then there's yokai, which is a demon who commands thunder, named Ikazushi. And so they're similar to Pocky and Rocky, but they're not too different from Pocky and Rocky. So,
okay.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Nifty.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend checking this out. There are some censorship issues, if I remember correctly, in the North American version. I don't know if it's in-game or just the cover art. I don't remember. But yeah, there's some sort of censorship thing that happened when they brought the game over to North America. Nothing too big, nothing that is groundbreaking, but still, pretty cool game. The series in general is a lot of fun. Pocky and Rocky 2 specifically really need to re-release though, desperately, because it's stupid expensive now. Yeah, to get a physical copy, and I don't believe it was re-released on anything in terms of virtual console or anything like that. At least not here in North America. So, all right, so we're moving into our final game, and what did you pick?
Yes, so for Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, I'm going to play a track that I found is titled BGM Stage 200. This is composed by Iku Mizutani, as we said at the top of the show, and this came out on the Switch, PS5, PC, and Xbox in 2024. All right, you're back. That was BGM Stage 2 00, as I found it, from Shadow the Ninja Reborn, composed by Iku Mizutani in the year of 2024 on Switch, PS5, PC, and Xbox.
Yeah.
Oh man, I really enjoyed this one. I browsed through a couple of the other tracks on the soundtrack, and they're all pretty good, but I picked this one mostly because it felt familiar to me. Now, I've never played the original Shadow the Ninja, and I'm not super familiar with the soundtrack, but there's a lot in this song that just felt very, very familiar. Like the opening, the dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
And there's other pieces. Like there's a lot in this that feels familiar to me, which, like I said, is weird because I've never played the game. So
I did force Justin to listen to the original version of this song just so he could compare. And I think the thing that disappoints me the most about this remade version is the lack of the really heavy, it's got guitar in it, but that you got that really kind of heavy rhythm section that was very prominent in the original NES version, the digga-dun-digga-dun-digga. You've got that gallop.
It's not as powerful here.
It's nowhere near as powerful.
I would argue the gallop is fine. The gallop sounds good to me, but it's that part where the melody kind of cuts out, and in the chiptune version, you have, like you said, that bass section, and in this one, it's more of just a rhythm section. So it's a lot lighter.
Yeah. I mean, it almost sounds like, on the original at least, that is part of the entire track, and what they're doing is they're dropping out the melody for that so that you can hear it more prominently. And the difference is that in this new remade version of that track, that part specifically is just so much more weak sounding because it's kind of pushed into the background. So you can hear it, but like the instruments that are being used are nowhere near as powerful sounding. So it just kind of whimpers along, it's more like a digga.
Yeah, when the melody drops out, it feels more empty in this version than it does in the original chiptune.
I'm going to be honest, I just don't like the synths that are being used here. They're just so wispy and whimsical kind of sounding. As opposed to what this song is when you go back and you listen to this soundtrack, it is a metal soundtrack. It is a rockin' sockin' robot-in soundtrack. Ninja something, rockin' sockin' robot in ninja in soundtrack. And what you don't get with this remake is you get some guitar for sure, because Iku Mizutani, plays a lot of guitar. In a lot more of his newer music, but I just feel like something is lost. The power of this soundtrack is kind of lost with this newer version, and it's replaced with something that's just sounds kind of like a lukewarm version of the original soundtrack, which is unfortunate because Shadow of the Ninja has such incredible music. Again, I'm really trying not to sound so nostalgic for Shadow of the Ninja because it's a great game and it's a great soundtrack and everything, but I don't know. This version's just not cutting it for me. For the most part, it's not bad. It's just I expected more. I expected a little bit more power. So
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. How dare you?
No, I get you. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, especially like comparing the Mizutani tracks to the Iwatsuki stuff. That he's been doing. I just think Iwatsuki has a little bit more of a respect for the original and not wanting to like kind of miss out on the power that those tracks had.
Yeah.
So kind of building upon that while keeping the legacy of the original. Whereas these Shadow of the Ninja tracks, for the most part, not all of them, but many of them feel kind of not as strong sounding.
Yeah.
So,
All right. They fall a little flat for you.
Yeah. So we're going to be closing out the episode with a 2-part track. It's the ending theme for Shadow of the Ninja. Originally, the NES version had these as one track combined. And then what they did was they separated the track into 2 different parts. Technically speaking, it was 2 separate tracks on the NES version, but they played at the same time during the ending credits or like the ending of the game. So the reason why they did that is to save on like limitations, because the NES could only like repeat like so much and do so much. So they couldn't have like a 3-minute track without it looping. So what they did was they created a first part, and then they created a second part. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. That was our final track, the two-part ending of Shadow of the Ninja Reborn. I know I cheated a little bit, by Iku Mizutani. The original soundtrack, also just to keep in mind, was composed by Koichi Yamanishi for Shadow of the Ninja on the NES. But yeah, I can't believe that they didn't include this as one track, that they separated them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there an official soundtrack? Because, I mean, what we found with the way that things were named, I feel like either we do not yet have an official soundtrack, or it just, I don't know what the deal is.
I'm not sure. I know that there's a physical edition that came out through... Yeah, there's a regular physical edition that came out through In Games. They have been publishing a lot of the Tengo Project games in North America, which is great because they get like physical retail releases, which is awesome. But Strictly Limited is handling the special editions, and again, their track record's not great in terms of getting stuff out on time. When I ordered from them Ninja Saviors, like they got it in the warehouse and then they let it sit there and rot for 2 months before they actually shipped it.
Weird.
And I was like, what? Like, why didn't you ship it when you got it? Like, I could understand maybe a couple weeks, but 2 months? Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so this is kind of like seeing it separated as two separate tracks. It's like you can't have one without the other. They set each other up so great. It'd be like playing Green Day's Jaded without playing Brains Tube ahead of time.
Yeah, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And now, having heard it, I see what you were getting at.
Yeah. I think that this track does a much more faithful job of staying true to the original than the other tracks that we've heard today from Shadow of the Ninja Reborn. I still have complaints about it, though. I think that the bass line is just non-existent in this track, in this remake. It was just so much more prominent in that NES. You know, you got that doop 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 doop, you know, kind of bass line. And there's also little neat flourishes in the NES that's kind of lost, mostly I think due to editorial decisions and working within your limitations. I think the way that you would make things sound interesting on the NES, they used a lot of really cool techniques like slide effects. So that opening part on the NES, it goes do 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 do, and that's lost kind of on this version, on the Reborn version. And just like there's little like sound effects that are kind of trickled throughout the back end second part of the ending track, where you've got these like kind of stabby dun, 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 kind of echoey parts in the original. Those just aren't really present, or if they are, they're completely buried in the background of this Reborn version. I think the guitars are way more energetic this time around with the ending track. But yeah, just like in general, it's just like not as good as the original, but it's still a good rendition of this ending track.
I enjoyed it overall. I mean, I've said before, I like a song that'll give focus to the piano, and the first part of this had a really beautiful piano piece.
Agreed.
And I just can't pass that up. And then when it got into kind of the meat and potatoes of the song afterwards, it was very soaring. Like, I enjoyed the guitar that they had there, and just the entire track was very much just soaring guitar.
Yeah. No, it was good. I forgot about that piano. The piano was excellent in the beginning. I thought that was a neat and different and unique transition from the NES to like a more modern machines.
Yeah, actually having heard the NES version, I wouldn't have expected that to be translated to a piano.
True.
But I thought it worked very well.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a guitar, like when you run your hand along the neck of the guitar.
Yeah.
It felt like that on the original NES version. That
the slides.
That's kind of what I got an impression of. So this game, plot-wise, I don't think we touched on that.
Oh, no.
You are trying to save the United States of America because there's this evil emperor named Garuda. This takes place in 2029, so we're not that far away from it.
Ooh.
Yeah. And he's essentially building this giant stronghold in the middle of the nation's quote-unquote largest city. And you've got to try to stop him. So there's two ninja masters that are sent in from the Iga clan. One is Lord Hayate and the other is Lady Kaede. So they are sent to take him out. So you fight all sorts of weird villains. The first boss in this game is like a pirate guy. It's weird. It's like on a ship, and he looks like a Pluto-style pirate. It's weird.
Okay.
Like from Popeye.
Yeah.
Or Bluto.
Bluto, yeah.
Yeah. So... But I've not gotten very far in this game, truth be told, in the original. I think I maybe beat the second level. It got to the third level and then just couldn't get further. So this new remake feels control-wise a lot more unique, a lot more balanced, so to speak, a little bit more user-friendly, if you will. Really feels like it was made on the Super Nintendo, visually speaking. The original characters, at least on the box art, look very like comic booky.
Yeah.
And the remade versions, at least the art on the box art, they look more like anime-ish.
Oh, okay.
You know. So that is Tengo Project. Covered a lot of really excellent music within the span of 5 games. But I really hope that they continue making games both from the past, remaking them, and also making new games as well. I'd like to see them make something new next. You know, maybe something that is kind of like a sequel to Ninja Warriors, or Ninja Warriors again, rather, or maybe like Shatterhand, a remake of Shatterhand. That'd be cool. Shatterhand's a little tough to do, though, because it's a reskin of a Sentai show.
That's right.
Yeah. So I don't know how they do that, but...
maybe a follow-up to Omega 5.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Omega 6. Yeah.
They'll add a second dog.
Yes. No, just nothing but dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 dogs.
6 dogs.
Oh, man.
Call it Omega Wolf.
Love it.
Yeah. Anyway, now is the time of the episode where we pick our favorite tracks. We're going to have some difficulty with that because they're all really great. But what do you got?
I got a lot.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go with your Ninja Saviors Return of the Warriors Stage 1 track.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. A close follow-up was your World of Hades track. I thought
Okay.
that was another really nice one.
Stage 1 is also Ninja Saviors. That's also my pick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it's just an excellent track.
Yeah.
I did really like the techno bounce of your Omega 5 track.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of techno.
Yeah.
So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons, without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Cam Worma, Jordan and Ensign Davis, Rage Cage, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, Claire Myers, Brad Austin, Chris Murray, Llama Adam, Marcus Stewart, Red Hua, Nick Davis, and Ryan McPherson.
If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/XVGM Radio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
If you like what you've heard, please consider giving us a review on iTunes.
You can join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks or just talking about the podcast itself.
You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle on both those sites is @XVGM Radio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links in the show notes. All right, Justin, so in 1 month, we are coming back for a new episode.
Well, a little less than 1 month.
Yeah, that's true. We've got some personal stuff going on, so we're going to be very busy. So no live episode this month for patrons. We're going to be pushing that to January. There's probably also going to be no After Dark as well in December.
Right.
So you can expect just one standard episode, which is going to be 118. What are we doing?
So episode 118, we're going to jump into some party game music.
Yeah.
And so when you think of party games, you probably think of Mario Party because it's got the word party in the title. But we're looking at games that are just generally large multiplayer fun time games. So obviously, yes, Mario Party, the Jackbox games.
Yeah, it's going to be a list full of fun party style games. I don't think Smash Brothers is going to make that list.
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know that Smash Brothers really falls into that category. Like,
No.
yeah, it is a large multiplayer game, but I mean, so is Mario Kart 8.
Right.
I don't think that's really going to fall in there.
Yeah,
too.
no,
It's
this
more,
is more more like Mario Party. I don't know if it's going to be specifically board games.
No, 'cause we've done board and card games specifically. There are a number of games that are similar to Mario Party, where I know there's a One Piece game on the GameCube that I had, even though I have no idea what One Piece is even about. I think it's called One Piece Pirate Carnival.
Oh, cool.
I played it at a convention years ago when it was new, and it was really fun. It was really neat. So I might pick something from that, but games like that, like party games.
Yes.
It should be self-explanatory. Maybe it's not.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, you'll all see us in just a few weeks. This is Mike.
And Justin.
Signing off for XVGM Radio.
All right. You're back. That was Stage 7 Boss from the Ninja Survivors. What game have I been playing recently? Whoops.
Ninja Survivors.
Yeah. From the Ninja Saviors, Return of the Warriors.